Stay tuned for a story of engineering, hard work, betrayal and lawsuits, or the humanity of the story of the Deltawing. Greetings petrolheads and welcome to romrom.net, the channel sharing the joy of sim racing. 2 weeks ago I presented the mod for the Deltawing and it gathered a lot of attention, as did the Deltawing in its time, which gave the start to something that I was thinking already while I was doing the video for the mod. While I was researching the Deltawing and the story of this very special vehicle, I found a typical story for motorsport, a story of betrayal, a story of egos, all in all a very interesting story that I'm going to be presenting in this video. This is a story mostly of 4 people: Ben Bowlby, a British engineer, the father of the idea, Don Panos and Chip Ganassi, the boss of the Ganassi racing organization, and Don Panos, a car builder, and of Darren Cox, head of Nissan Europe. It all begins with Ben Bowlby. Ben Bowlby was a chief designer at Lola from 1997 till 2002, after he had spent some years as a racer while studying for his engineering degree. Bowlby had a revolutionary idea for a racing car, and when he heard that IndyCar was shopping around for a new Indy car, he set himself up to develop and present the concept for the Deltawing. What he had in mind was to reduce the aerodynamic drag and to make the car faster in corners and straights than the Dallara that IndyCar used at that time. On the other hand, with less weight, engine power and fuel consumption. A faster car that was cheaper to build. After he took parts of an RC car and built the design of the Deltawing around it to show that the car was even feasible, he got money from Chip Ganassi and built a prototype that was shown at the Chicago Auto Show in 2010. There were a lot of people impressed, Dario Franchitti for example, but at the end the committee searching for a new car for IndyCar chose a Dallara. That did not stop the Deltawing story, as you may expect. Don Panos was a fan and he partnered with Chip Ganassi and took Bowlby under contract to develop a racing car based on the Deltawing design. In 2011, Michelin became a sponsor and supplier of the tires. The front tires were specially made by Michelin as they are unusually small, with only 10 centimeters of width and 29 centimeters of radius. One of the ideas that the Deltawing consortium had was to present the Deltawing as a sports prototype. There was some communication with the organizers of Le Mans, and very soon the Deltawing was accepted as Garage 56 car, which means it's out of competition, it's just an experimental car, but it's allowed to race at Le Mans on the 24 hours like every other car. Let's talk a little bit about the Deltawing as a racing car. The shape was especially made so that the aerodynamic footprint was about a half of what was normal at that time. An important point in the design was the reduction of dirty air, the wake behind mostly open wheels that makes it difficult to overtake. And the shape comes from its form with 0.6 meters in front, which is about nothing, and 1.7 meters at the rear, the downforce coming from the underbody, as it does not have any wings. With 475 kilograms in weight, it weighs less than most racing cars. The motor was a turbo with around 223 kilowatt power and made up mostly of Chevrolet parts, even if Nissan was always telling that it was a Nissan motor. Some of the parts of the system were laser sintered, or to make it more understandable, 3D printed. That is not to say that the Deltawing didn't have problems. It always had gearbox and differential issues, but contrary to what my test of the mod showed, it did not understeer. In fact, the test drivers always said it went very well into corners. In the meantime, the Deltawing consortium had acquired Nissan as a partner, and first Nissan was not very sure of what to make of it, but they did some tests, saw that it was working, and after tests gave the results Nissan was expecting from the team, they signed a partnership contract and put engineers working full-time on it. Part of the contract was that Nissan was to pay $2 million and the expenses in building the car for Le Mans. This is gonna be important later, and for that money Nissan got its name in the livery very big. The Deltawing got the branding Nissan Deltawing. Nissan got to select the drivers for the team and was allowed to use the Deltawing at any time together with their trademark. Panos and Ganassi built a Deltawing Project 56 the name of the garage of Le Mans, and Bowlby went under contract for that team to develop the racing car. Or did he? The contract never was signed by Bowlby, even if it seems he had verbally agreed to the terms and was reminded repeatedly to sign the contract. Furthermore, he was paid for his work. Yes, this point is also going to be important later. Remember what I said about lawsuits? Yeah, later. At the moment, we are still in the honeymoon phase of this project. At Le Mans, also because of heavy marketing by Nissan, many people were very interested in the Deltawing. They were excited for its revolutionary design and wanted to see how it would do on track. Project Deltawing 56 had to do some changes to the car to make it fitter. For example, the mirrors were not part of the plan, but they had to be added for the car to be allowed to race on Le Mans. This raised the aerodynamic footprint by 8%. How did it fare at Le Mans 2012? Well, after a little bit more than 6 hours, the car was pushed by Kazuki Nakajima off track and into a concrete barrier, and even if the pilot tried for 1.5 hours to get it working again, he was not able and the car had to retire. The end of the Le Mans experiment seems to have been, for some, the end of their involvement with the Deltawing. Nissan was not interested anymore. Ben Bowlby seems to have said that he never expected the Deltawing to become a series. For him, it was a dare, a way to show that you can do things completely outside of the box, that you can imagine racing cars completely different. There was another reason why Nissan was not interested in the Nissan Deltawing anymore, more to it in a minute. Panos, on the other hand, had bigger ideas. First of all, he was thinking about maybe making a whole series out of it. He was the owner of the American Le Mans series at that time, and he owned Road Atlanta, Sebring and Motosport, so he was also involved in making racing series, so he had the clout and the money to set up a series based on the Deltawing. He also was thinking about building a coupe based on the Deltawing. He talked with Infiniti, only to hear from Infiniti that, I quote, "A similar project is under consideration here, possibly in cooperation with another manufacturer." End of quote. Whoa, what's going on here? Another manufacturer? There could only be one other manufacturer interested, willing and able to build a car based on the Deltawing technology. As it turns out, Nissan seems to have decided to poach Ben Bowlby in April 2012, according to documents available to the court in the lawsuit, and mostly because Nissan wanted the ownership of the intellectual property and didn't want to go into partnership with the Deltawing consortium, which would have costed them $50 million. In the fall of 2012, Bowlby took a position in Nissan as Director of Motorsport Innovation, leaving Deltawing Project 56 and seemingly keeping files from that project in an external hard disk. Let's continue with the sports part of this story. In 2012, in Petit Le Mans, a collision in practice could have meant the end of the Deltawing story, but the mechanics put the car together again and it was able to race as an unclassified entry. In Road Atlanta, it was 5th overall, but the sport achievements of the Deltawing are not especially good, plagued by problems with the motor, which at that point was a Mazda, problems in the gearbox, engine failures. In 2013, the Deltawing only came twice in the points of the American Le Mans series, and in 2014 it took part in the United Sports Car Championship, which later became IMSA, the International Motorsports Association, owned by Don Panos, but it did not fare well. In 2015, it only finished 3 out of 9 appearances. The best result was 6th at Road America, and at the end it was 8th in the team standings out of 16, but 7 of the other teams did not hold until the end of the season. Remember the communication with Infinity? Things did not sit well with Don Panos, and he and Chip Ganassi filed suit as the Deltawing Consortium against Ben Bowlby and Nissan for theft of IP, theft of trade secrets, theft of confidential information, for fraud, and whatever else they could think of that would stick. Or so it seems. After mediation talks broke down in 2014, Panos published 2 open letters in ads in some magazines, making his position clear against Nissan. It was in 2014 and then Nissan and Bowlby claimed the Nissan Ziot, which you see in the picture, is completely different than the Deltawing. Yeah. In 2015, in front of the court, Panos claimed that Nissan never finalized their sponsorship, ripped off their design and even poached designer Ben Bowlby. It seems that Nissan never paid the $2 million and expenses that they had promised. In 2016, it became known that Nissan and the Deltawing Consortium settled out of court. And it is said, but of course the settlement is confidential, it is said that Nissan was less happy with the settlement than the consortium was. Gee, I wonder why. A mail by a high-up Nissan executive quoted in court documents, and as it seems written at the time where the Ziot was being developed but Nissan and Panos still had an understanding, stated that the Deltawing partners, quote, must not find out we are considering a road car, there would be severe legal implications, end quote. On that same year and after the settlement, Nissan released the Blade Glider. With regards to the racing side, regulation changes at IMSA in 2017 meant that the Deltawing was not allowed to participate anymore, and so the Deltawing story closes. What did become of the people involved in this? Ben Bowlby is a designer for racing cars, and in 2014 it even designed the GTR-L Nismo LMP1. Another daring design, more inside the rules this time, but that also did not make it. Don Panos continues building cars, racing cars and street cars. Chip Ganassi has his Chip Ganassi Racing operating in IndyCar, in the NASCAR Cup Series and in the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, as well as in the WEC, the World Endurance Championship. Darren Cox, the boss of Nissan Europe at that time, became the boss of Nissan Motorsports worldwide on the wings of the Deltawing, yeah, pun intended, only to leave the company in 2015, probably because he lost control of Nissan's LMP1 program. As of 2019, Cox was promoted to president and director of Millennial Esports, which you may know because they are the company behind the world's fastest gamer competition that they made together with McLaren. Looking at it, it seems that the only ones that lost something is we Motosport fans, as we don't have the Deltawing anymore to rejoice our eyes, but that's the way life goes. What do we make of this whole fiasco. It seems that Nissan did not act in good faith. Bowlby may or may not have considered the legality and morality of his actions. He may or may not have given up the Deltawing of Tallemant. He may or may not have been pursuing a design idea to the best when going to Nissan. Panos, and in a lesser degree Ganassi, showed an exceptional naivete when dealing with Nissan and Bowlby, as well as not following up on promises made. Promises by Bowlby to sign the contract, by Nissan to deliver the 2 million in expenses in a timely manner. Also, it's strange that Panos did not push for a better motor, better gearing, a better Deltawing, while that vehicle was racing. But he may have been missing money, the right people, and maybe enough motivation to do so. And the Deltawing? Nothing is left of the Deltawing revolution today, as nobody seems to have continued with any of the concept. One of the problems at IndyCar and Formula 1 is that dirty air makes it difficult to overtake, racing cars consume like monsters, and the designs are not very revolutionary. I don't think that we'll ever see a design as revolutionary as the Deltawing. The Deltawing was and is an interesting concept that is lots of fun to see, and, at least based on the mod for Assetto Corsa, completely different to drive than anything else. Do you want to hear more stories about the world of motorsports? What about? Drop us a line in the comments. In any case, take a look at the video for the Assetto Corsa Deltawing mod and check the rest of our videos in the channel sharing the joy of sim racing. If you like this video, applaud by giving it a thumbs up and share it with others. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell to become part of the RomRom family and to be informed about new videos. If you already did, thank you again. And until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other at the podium.
Visit romrom.net to connect to fellow sim racers and sim racing fans.